flowers and birds like that, don't you think he's going to care for his own children? The promises of the Bible are repeatedly consistent that God cares for his children. So here's the bottom line. If we had the slightest idea that God was trustworthy, then we would not feel worried about our finances, except for the fact that we've all made stupid decisions to make lifestyle into obligations, and maybe we need to revisit some of those things. Because we ourselves are the ones who have relied on money and have created the obligations for us to bring all that tower really up here, even though our income's over here. But if there were a way for us to get back to a place where godliness was most important, then we would have a far different perspective. If we had any sense of how wealthy God is, if we had any sense of the fact that he is your dad, then you'd have no need, no worries. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. See, the scriptures are clear. God wants to take care of you. But if we start from a perspective of I need more, we're already outside of that realm. If instead we start with a perspective, I'm just going to be with God, because godliness is its own reward. Being with my Father. Now, some of you here this morning, maybe you don't have a relationship with God that is something that is firm and solid that you can stand on. And if you're in that camp today, I want you to mark down on your card, I'm interested in finding out what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to become a Christian. Just put it down on your card, put a check mark there on the front side. Let us know, because listen, godliness is the number one thing that needs to be true in your life before you reach great gain. You have to have a relationship with God that is settled and stable. But here's the second suggestion I would make to you. Godliness is the first one. The second one is to adjust your contentment line. Adjust your contentment line. We don't admit it, but most of us are not content unless our obligations are this high and our lifestyle is this high and we're pulling out luxury whenever we can. Most of us are not content because we've believed the lie the world told us. That we have to have, that we have to do, that we have to look, that we have to act, that we have to represent. We believe that we're not going to be content unless we have all those same things piled up. But you know what? You can be content. Look what Paul says. In this same passage, the verses we haven't yet looked at, verses 7 and 8, check it out. Paul says, "For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that." We brought nothing into the world, we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Paul is just trying to shift the line for us. Say, listen, what would life be like? Imagine it with me. What would life be like if your contentment line were half of your income line? You would be rich. You would have crossed the line of contentment and have far more abundance. And the margin between what you have and what you need would be so huge, you'd be able to do anything with that extra. And that extra, that margin, that surplus is what would make you feel like the wealthiest person on the planet. God says you can be rich. You can be rich. All you have to do is understand the line and put the line someplace where you can cross it. Cross the line. Be content. Find contentment. The rest of these weeks, we're going to spend 3 more weeks talking about being rich. And at the end of 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul takes a command directly to rich people. And he says this, "Timothy, command those who are rich." And he gives them a list of things. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on for the next 3 weeks. What are God's commands to rich people? But before we could do that, we had to spend time today saying, okay, what does it mean to be rich? How do I become a person who has already crossed the line, who can view myself in that category? Because based on the numbers, based on the statistics, we in this room should feel incredibly rich. We should. But we don't. And that's because of something going on in our hearts. So let me invite you to take just a moment of reflection. Is godliness for me its own reward? Can I, A, be content in my relationship with God? And then B, ask yourself the question, what really do I need to be content? What really do I need to be content? I want to invite you to jot down some thoughts on the back of that card right now. We're going to enter into a time of reflection. The band's going to come up and play a song for us. During that song, we're going to take an offering. If today's your first time in our church, I'm not talking about money because I want you to give the offering out of guilt. In fact, if today's your first time, I only want your card to be in that offering basket. That's your gift to us. If you came prepared to give, go ahead and give like you came prepared to give. But I even thought about not taking an offering during this series because I didn't want anyone to give just because they felt guilty. The pastor's talking about money or something like that. Because what I want you to do is I want you to find that place of huge surplus compared to godliness and contentment, and then to give with joyful hearts as God leads you to. That's where we're going with all this. And so if today's offering is low, that's cool. I don't care. I don't measure Sundays based on how big the offering is. What I want you to do is I want you to say, how's my heart? If you came prepared, go ahead and give. If you didn't come prepared or you're feeling guilty, just don't. But here's the deal. Spend some time right now, you and God, in reflection.
Thank you for listening to this message from Lafayette Community Church. We believe that God has a full and fulfilling life in store for you, and we want to help you live it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, Pastor Jeff, through the web form at LafayetteCommunityChurch.com. And as always, I encourage you to plug into a solid, God-honoring community wherever you may be. Life is a journey, and no one should ever walk alone.